Hi everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Danmei Digest, where I talk about whatever Danmei novel catches my interest. Each episode, I'll cover a set of chapters from a novel and discuss my thoughts, predictions, etc. Now, I could start off with one of my favorites, which is Heaven Official's Blessing, by the way, but I thought it would be a little bit more fun for me and for you guys to read a novel that I've never read before. So, we are first discussing Copper Coins, the Chinese name being Tongqian Kanshi by Mu Su Li, translated by Seven Seas Entertainment. This author has also written Global Examination and Unseen Immortal of 300 Years, also known as 300 Years of Longing. You can read the full summary of the book in this podcast description, but right now here's a quick summary of what happened in chapters 1 through 4. Xue Xian was once a dragon, but after his tendons and bones were stripped from his body, he is now a weak paper effigy, which is basically a paper human talisman. He's currently camping out in this old burned-down house of somebody owned by Jiang Shining, who is a ghost also tethered to a paper effigy. After buying food from a local restaurant several times, presumably to give him some energy, the locals become suspicious of them, and they attract the attention of a monk whose name is Xuanmin. Xuanmin picks up both paper effigies and puts them in his pouch, and he's about to exit the burned-down house and go on his way. But he is then accused by Scribe Liu, who is an important family in the area, of being wanted by the government. It's then discovered that Scribe Liu is one of the people who actually attacked Xue Xian, which is the dragon. Additionally, after following Scribe Liu to his home, it's discovered that there's a mysterious side house hidden away containing his eldest son. The side house is covered in golden ingots, which are basically pieces of paper with names written on them. And underneath the dresser, there is a mysterious talisman. Actually, there are 4 mysterious talismans with nails through them. So chapter 4 ends with the eldest Liu son accidentally dripping his blood onto the talismans. Kind of spooky. So yeah, since I've only read chapters 1 through 4, I don't have much of an impression of the book yet. I am loving the cover art style, as I do with pretty much all of Seven Seas books. But to be honest, I was hesitant, as I've heard many people were at first, at picking this book up because, having a bald monk as a main protagonist is very unusual as far as Danmeis go. But you know what? Avatar: Last Airbender has shown us that great characters come in all form, hair or no. So yeah, I thought I'd give this a try. And I was also at the library and just happened to see it on the shelf. So I'm like, why not? So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, from these chapters and the main summary of the book, we know that Xue Xian used to be a dragon. He was somehow overpowered and his tendons and bones were stripped from his body. Not exactly sure how that happens, but, magical things in cultivation in Danmei, maybe there's not an explanation that we could understand. That does sound unimaginably painful. And to no surprise, he has hardly any power left and is actually partially paralyzed. He used to be fully paralyzed, but he seems to have gained back some energy. He basically sends his sidekick, Jiang Shining, as I mentioned earlier, to grab food for him to help him get his energy and strength back. Some questions I have, though, when reading these first 4 chapters is how was he overpowered? If he was a dragon capable of summoning lightning, which they do mention in the book, he has to be very, very powerful. So it seems unlikely that people as weak as Scribe Liu could take him down. So it seems like Scribe Liu might have had some help from some powerful people, or maybe had something to drain his energy and weaken him. And it seems that Xue Xian doesn't even really know who attacked him. He only identified Scribe Liu after seeing some of his blood marking him as being at the scene of the crime. So basically, when the bones and tendons were stripped from the body, the blood spattered on the people who did the deed itself. So, lots of questions that obviously don't have any answers yet, being only finishing chapter 4. There also seems to be some history between the deceased Jiang Shining and Scribe Liu's family. Right now, he's pretty much just like a side character, but I'm sure as the book goes on, we'll learn more about him, and he'll become more of a major side character, a central figure. But it seems that perhaps maybe the fire that killed Jiang Shining was set by the Liu family, or maybe it's possible the conflict had nothing to do with the family's death. I could be being misled by the author, but it does seem that Jiang Shining's reaction to seeing Scribe Liu doesn't quite match with him being the one who killed him and his family, but we'll have to see. Then, of course, there's the mysterious Xuanmin, who is probably the most curious out of all these characters. We know the least about him than anyone else. He's stoic, cold, doesn't say a whole lot. Maybe the strong and silent type. But yeah, we really don't know anything about this guy, and there are pretty much no clues to his past at this point. He somewhat resembles a wanted poster for a high monk, which probably isn't a coincidence. Crazy theory, throwing it out there, only 4 chapters in, with no basis whatsoever, but he could potentially be the high monk, but maybe de-aged in some magical way. Xue Xian comments how Xuanmin's hands are very smooth with no sign of hard work whatsoever. So potentially that could be a sign that he was de-aged to his younger self, maybe. Alternative theories, maybe Xuanmin could be hunting down the rogue high monk for his betrayal of the monk values. Or maybe Xuanmin was an apprentice of this rogue high monk that's wanted by the government. Honestly, there's infinite possibilities. And with only 4 chapters, there isn't much to go off yet. Okay, so those are the major characters. Now going to the plot, there definitely seems to be some mystery vibes going on here. Will this be the tone of the whole series? Probably. I mean, I can't think of a cultivation-themed Danmei without some mysteries to uncover. I mean, Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation obviously had a lot of mysteries and revelations throughout the whole series. And this does seem like a pretty good start. A mysterious section of the Liu Manor with unbalanced yin energy, an autistic-coded son obsessed with creating golden ingots with people's names written on them, as well as mysterious talismans with nails through them. It's definitely a good setup for a mystery. I think that Scribe Liu took advantage of his eldest son to draw negative energy away from him and his other younger son. And he wanted to direct it all towards the eldest son, whose name is Liu Chong. That's my theory. So that's why I think the layout in the eldest son's like side home is called Drawing the River to the Sea, because I think it's all about like directing energy away from Scribe Liu and to his eldest son, particularly negative energy. That's my theory. Scribe Liu certainly had a very shady reaction to the talismans being discovered, that's for sure. But, the question remains is, how is the eldest son, Liu Chong, able to survive with such heavy yin energy around him? And also the golden ingots that he keeps on writing, what is their significance? And if the bad energy is being drawn to the eldest son, why did the second son almost drown and suffer such bad luck? I mean, it seems like the array clearly isn't working in that case. So I don't know if my theory is correct, but I'm sure that these questions will be answered in the next set of chapters, and I'm excited to see the wrap-up of this mini arc, because I think the next podcast episode will be finishing section 1 or part 1 of the first book, so I think it'll probably be wrapped up and I'll have some answers to these questions. Also, something I took note of when I was reading was a scene in chapter 3 where the paper figure of Xue Xian is clinging onto this young messenger boy from the Liu house. Once they reached the Liu house, Xue Xian basically scares him half to death by speaking to him in the paper effigy form, and the young boy's courage is described as no greater than a pinhead. I don't know, I just love Chinese figures of speeches. I think they're hilarious. As Danmei readers, of course, we are familiar with drinking vinegar. But one that I found on Instagram that I thought was pretty funny is 天涯何处无芳草, which basically translates in English to where in the world is there a lack of fragrant grass? It's the equivalent to there are plenty of fish in the sea, and it kind of is used as a consolation phrase to after a breakup, you don't get that job that you wanted. I don't know, I just think it's hilarious, and I just love these Chinese proverbs, figures of speeches. I think they're hilarious. But yeah, brief tangent aside, these are my thoughts on chapters 1 through 4. I'm very eager to uncover more as we continue reading. But yeah, this is my first time doing a podcast. So if you have any feedback, anything you would like to see, maybe more summary, less summary of the chapters, please let me know. And also let me know your spoiler-free thoughts about copper coins. Until next time, everyone.